Hello, warm welcome. You're watching Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. These are the top stories. France Media Monde pays tribute to our colleague and friend Jean-Karim Fall, who died suddenly today while covering the G7 summit in Sicily. An editor-in-chief who specialised in African affairs, Jean-Karim will be sorely missed. Zambia's opposition leaders given 15 days to seek a judicial review of his treason case. Meanwhile, in South Africa, thousands gather at the Zambian embassy to denounce what they say is a politically motivated charge. And Egyptian authorities say at least 28 Coptic Christians have been killed and scores wounded this Friday after gunmen opened fire on the bus that they were travelling in. But we begin tonight's Eye on Africa programme paying tribute to our colleague and friend Jean-Karim Fall, who passed away suddenly in Sicily today while he was covering the G7 summit for France 24. As an editor-in-chief and a specialist in African affairs, Jean-Karim was a well-known face to France 24's viewers. His voice was equally familiar to listeners of our sister channel, Radio France International, where he'd worked since 1984. Well, Jean-Karim will be remembered as a highly experienced journalist who was always calm and composed. Our colleagues have tonight been paying tribute to a family man with a big heart.
How can I describe the shock of this loss? We're all orphans of a dear friend, a guide. For me, he was one of the greatest editors-in-chief I've ever known. He was a friend to everyone. He helped so many journalists. He explained things so clearly, never shouted, with his kindness, his smile, his honesty, his heart of gold, and his integrity.
Jean-Karim was really one of the top 5 experts on the African community in France. He spent his whole career, 30 years at RFI and then 5 years at France 24. At RFI, I think he must have interviewed all the African heads of state. Over 30 years, he covered every news story having something to do with the African continent. He was well and truly the Mr. Africa.
When I think about Jean-Karim, the first image that comes to me is of a great editor-in-chief back when I was a young journalist. He had so much charisma, a real presence. So as an editor-in-chief, we respected him due to this presence, as well as for his expert knowledge on Africa, which was so impressive for us young journalists working on the Africa team.
Well, to talk more about Jean-Karim's life and career, let's bring in France 24's James Andre. James, good to have you this evening. Jean-Karim was a well-respected editor-in-chief, passionate about Africa. He was also a husband and father who's going to be sorely missed.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, at France 24, he was, indeed, as it's been said in one of these thoughts, he was Mr. Africa. He travelled Africa for 35 years. He's covered every single conflict on the continent for the past 30 years. He had intricate knowledge of everything regarding Africa, but not only Africa. He started at RFI, Radio France International, back in 1984. Then he joined France 24 in 2012. He worked here as an editor-in-chief and then became one of our chroniqueurs politiques internationaux. That's an international affairs editor. So he would come on air very often about world affairs. And he was especially someone who was very highly respected and very appreciated because he was always so nice. You could always go and see Jean-Karim, ask him about African affairs, and he would always take the time to explain. He trained many journalists here and at RFI over the years. He really took them by the hand, helped them with their stories, helped them improve their work. And as you pointed out, he is a husband and a father of 2. His 2 grown-up children, 1 boy, 1 girl, one who is in Kenya, another in London. So, of course, we extend our condolences to them because, of course, it's terrible. And I've been having a lot of phone calls today by people who knew him very well and who were devastated at the idea that we will not see Jean-Karim again. We won't see him walk around the newsroom here and give all this so useful recommendations and all this incredible knowledge that he was an impersonation of.
James, thank you. And just to echo what James was saying, France 24 would like to extend our deepest condolences to Jean-Karim's family at this very difficult time. To Zambia next, where opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema has been given 15 days to apply for a judicial review to determine whether his case should be tried at the High Court. Well, Hichilema was accused of treason in April for failing to allow President Edgar Lunga's convoy pass him on a motorway. He appeared at a magistrate's court in the capital, Lusaka, today, where his legal team argued there were discrepancies in how his case was first presented. Well, meanwhile, the leader of South Africa's main opposition party has condemned Zambian authorities for denying him entry to the country as he tried to offer support to Hichilema. Minister Maime of the Democratic Alliance said officials boarded the plane when he arrived in Zambia, assaulted him before preventing him from leaving the aircraft. Speaking alongside protesters outside the Zambian embassy in Pretoria today, Maimane called it the treatment by Zambian authorities, quote, unlawful.
All I simply wanted was to arrive to stand side by side with a friend, a fellow comrade, somebody who stands for the rule of law in Zambia, HH, who has been detained in Zambia and charged with treason, a charge that could end up in capital punishment for absolutely no reason.
Next, Egypt's Interior Ministry says at least 28 Coptic Christians have been killed and scores wounded this Friday after gunmen opened fire on the bus they were travelling in. Well, the bus was heading to the monastery of St. Samuel the Confessor in Mahaga, Minya province. That's 140 miles south of Cairo. Well, the attack comes just 2 months after twin suicide bombings killed 46 Copts during church services on Palm Sunday. Shirley Sitborn has the latest in this report.
This is how the bus attacked on Friday looked when security forces arrived at the site. Riddled with machine gun bullets, its windows ripped out, and a massive hole on the side. On the inside of the vehicle, holes show the bullets had penetrated the bus. Friday, dozens of worshippers, among them many children, were traveling in the small convoy to visit the St. Samuel Monastery about 220 kilometers south of Cairo. They were ambushed by 3 SUVs. Witnesses say 8 to 10 gunmen wearing clothes that looked like military uniforms stormed out and opened fire at the bus. They escaped before security forces arrived. While the injured were evacuated to the nearest hospitals, security forces set up checkpoints along the road to try and catch the attackers. This is the 4th time since December that Egypt's Coptic community is attacked. Dozens of people were killed when jihadists bombed 3 churches in December and in April. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi then declared a 3-month state of emergency. Attacks on the community, the biggest Christian minority in the Middle East with about 9 million people, have multiplied in recent years.
Almost 2 years on from a beach terror attack which killed dozens of holidaymakers, a Tunisian court has held its first public hearing in the trial. Well, in total, that 26 people are on trial, including 6 policemen who are accused of failing to assist a person in danger. On June 26, 2015, a man armed with a Kalashnikov and grenades went on a rampage in the Port El Cantouche resort near Sousse. It was the second deadly attack on foreigners claimed by the Islamic State group that year. Our correspondent Sandro Lutjen has been following events for us.
The trial was already running 2 hours late this morning. Well, in the end, it has been postponed since the British lawyers cannot plead in a Tunisian Court of Justice. The British diplomacy appointed over 30 Tunisian lawyers to represent the plaintiffs. These lawyers were among the ones who asked for the trial to be postponed, a trial that should be rescheduled to October or September.
We asked to postpone the trial because we are the appointed lawyers for the plaintiffs. We received the file of the inquiry very late, just a week ago. We'll have to determine who holds responsibility. Is it the Tunisian state? Is it the insurance company? Or is it the travel operator?
33 people are being prosecuted in this trial, 7 are on the run. Most of them are being prosecuted for terrorism and homicide. But we also know that 6 of them are policemen, and they are charged with failing to assist a person in danger. The inquiry says they are responsible for the allegedly slow response of the police forces on the day of the Sousse attack.
And just to keep our viewers updated, the next court date has been set for October the 3rd. And finally, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the Malian Arm Wrestling Federation isn't as busy as a football federation might be, but nevertheless, its competitions always attract ample attention. And according to organisers, arm wrestling events drum up as much interest as football matches. This Friday, some 30 competitors locked arms in the capital, Bamako. There, the silence never lasted more than 5 seconds. That's pretty much the duration of an arm wrestling match. Well, you are up to date. Your Africa team is back in about 45 minutes' time. Do join us then.